All right. So this morning, Mike and I just kind of went on a whim here because we had to shoot some videos for a partner of ours, and we're like, why don't we just combine all these and make a podcast? People have been asking for years, when are you going to jump into the podcast world? And we've just always kind of neglected it because we have so many different things going on. But for this certain scenario, it's just like, why don't we combine these and just sit down and have a conversation over it? So that's what we're here today doing. Just set up some lights here in Mike's living room, and here we are. So we'll just jump straight into the first kind of question that we're going to kick off the conversation with, and try to keep this relatable as possible with everyone else. And so I realize that the majority of people listening or watching don't have the ability that we do to hunt as often as we do. The majority of you guys have full-time jobs outside of the hunting space. So with that given with that, I want to ask the first question, and that's if you had a 40-hour work week that is outside of the hunting space, how would you maximize your hunting time, having a full-time job outside of hunting?
Yeah, I mean, that's like you said, we've been fortunate enough, especially in the more recent years, to have a lot of time and opportunity to spend out there in the woods, but it hasn't always been that case.
No.
Shawn and I went to college together and grew up, and man, we booked classes plumb full on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and so we could try to have a long weekend, run up to the farm, run back home, wherever we were at, and hunt. And so I know a lot of our friends that work pretty regular jobs that spend a ton of time in the office. You got to kind of shift your mindset and really dial in your focus to how you're going to hunt, and you got to be a little more strategic with your approach, I feel like, as opposed to just having the opportunity to hunt pretty much every day or dang near every day, no matter what the weather and the deer movement dictates. So I think it's more about strategy when it comes to that, and especially if you're hunting public land or you're hunting a small piece of private where the pressure is higher. You got to be definitely more strategic and think outside of the box. So I know that obviously we use Onyx a lot in what we've done, and we've talked about that before, like how much that's changed over the years. Like it's amazing technology to have. And
Yeah.
for those of those of you who work in the office and maybe have your lunch break or whatever, can jump on there, do a lot of e-scouting, and you could do a lot of preseason planning before it ever gets to season.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were in college, like that wasn't even around. I think we had Google Maps. You'd go in, look at stuff, and get an idea, but I don't even know if you could drop a pin or anything like that. We weren't dropping pins on anything, that's for sure. We'd spend the majority of our time in the summer doing our scouting and trying to figure things out for the places that we hunt. So having that availability now is insane. It's a game changer. It saves you so much time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can spend a lot of time digitally figuring out stuff, and we do a lot of stuff in the off season too. Shed hunting and that type of stuff. But every little piece of information that we're gathering throughout the year, we're kind of putting together, pieces of the puzzle. And as you hunt a certain property, even, you learn more every time, and so you put all those pieces together, and eventually you have a pretty good idea of what the deer are doing, year to year, where they really like to be on a property certain times of year, and you can maximize your time way more efficiently.
Yeah, maximizing time's phenomenal. I mean, that's kind of what we were doing back then. We had a lot more time in our availability of time back then in college because we're just single dudes, no families. Our lives were school and hunting. That was it. And so, yeah, our trail cameras and everything else, it was wild. But with the time, we scheduled it out with our classes and some work here and there just to be able to do our hunting, anytime that we had open, which was basically what was it, Friday through Monday, and
if
then
we weren't at school
on Wednesday, yeah, if we weren't at school or working something, doing some work somewhere. But
you know, guys that work in like the corporate world, I mean, like they a lot of guys, especially have been working a job for a while, have pretty good vacation. Ty that hunts with us a ton,
yeah,
he really maximizes his vacation time and utilizes it really well, and he's able to even take half days.
Yeah.
And not, he goes in, works the morning, hunts the evening. Not everybody has that flexibility, but when it comes down to vacation time, got to utilize it wisely. And a lot of guys have to put in for it in advance, you know what I mean? So I think we get that question a ton, like, all right, if you had to pick, 3 days during the rut or 4 days during the rut, what are those days going to be? And it always varies every year, it seems like, depending on the weather and what's going on. So there's not like an easy answer there, but, obviously once the pre-rut rolls around late October into early November, that historically, for me at least, that first 10 days of November have been my favorite. Primarily hunting in Missouri because we're trying to get all the action in we can before rifle season, because it's a game changer. After rifle season, it's a different ball game. But November's magic for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And if you get the right weather, the right conditions with that, like a cold front, I feel like at the very end of October, and you can catch that, that first doe that goes into heat sometimes early, it's like a flip switches, and those bucks are going nuts. But I feel like it's still very much weather related at that point. Whereas, the first week of November it doesn't matter if it's hot, they're still rutting and running around like crazy. But if you get that right cold front right at the very end, like right before, right around Halloween, it can be pretty magical as well. So
yeah,
it's like that 2-week time frame, or even so on. But if you're talking bow hunting, like you said before rifle, it's that 2-week time frame right in there, I feel like.
Yeah, we've killed most of our deer during the rut. Seems like that time of year, but kind of to counteract that, like, I know I love, and you love hunting the early season.
Yeah.
Or even October.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not like anymore the rut can be a frustrating time to hunt, especially if you're targeting a specific buck. So, like, you don't have to put all your chips in the rut basket by any means, especially if you have a property that is, maybe has soybeans during the early season. You have a bachelor group on there. Like, there you got to be a little more flexible. You're not going to be able to book that vacation time, long in advance, because it really depends on the weather. But those early season cold fronts and October cold fronts can be absolutely magical.
Yeah, and to kind of go off of that, like, I remember, I was thinking while you were talking about that, about public land, like, most guys put all their eggs in that basket that first week of November, second week of November. And when I hunted Iowa back, I don't know, a few years ago, on public land, it was we chose that last week, Chandler and I, that last week of October to go hunt there, because I was like, I kind of want to get there before the crowd does. And it seemed to hold true. Ended up killing a buck. It was just barely into November, but we hunted, the week before, the last week of October, and it was phenomenal. And just getting in there before everyone else. Came back the next year, did the same thing, and the weather was terrible. It rained the whole time. We didn't have really cold weather or anything like that. Didn't end up killing a deer, so it's a gamble either way. But I feel like getting in there and trying to kind of beat that November crowd was somewhat beneficial that first year that we tried it.
Yeah, and in that situation, you're hunting, you're going on a trip, right? An out-of-state trip. So, like, you're going and you're hunting for a week, 10 days, whatever that is. So, like, you're committed. So, like, it is hard to, be like, all right, I'm going to use my week vacation for Iowa. I'm going to hunt the early season. Because it's like, okay, you go and you might have 1 or 2 good days of a week span. So that's why I think most people lend, towards more the rut type of day. But,
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so when it comes to like setups, that's a good thing to talk about now, is like, with hunting properties that you have permission on or have hunted for years, you kind of know those best spots. But like, I feel like it's really crucial for guys who have limited time to have some sort of mobile setup, because just like on those trips, like you're talking about, we travel all over and hunt properties, and we're there for a week, 10 days straight. And, we might have some spots that we know we're going to start off and get the trip started and scout and kind of hunt those early on. But it seems like always we end up hanging sets, moving, kind of dialing in as we learn more.
Yeah, for sure. I think, saddle hunting's become pretty big, but I haven't gotten into that one yet. And I feel like that new Raider hybrid is pretty phenomenal for the guy like me that's not fully into the saddle hunting yet, and then carry a few sticks, and it's pretty lightweight setup.
That's the thing with the saddles. We have so much gear anyway, so it's like not saving us really a whole lot. That's why I've never like fully dove into it. You got to have the sticks anyways to get up the tree. You got to have a platform. So some of those Novix platforms or stands that we hunt out of are so light. And I actually hunted out of the hybrid last year a couple different times, and it's like it's a small stand. But, in the right tree, it works great. Like you can shoot sitting down. as long as you don't have to shuffle around a bunch of branches in the tree and stuff, it works great. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think like, you got to have a mobile setup, when you're in those scenarios, because it seems like more often than not, you kind of notice something going on when you're out there in the field hunting and you dial in your plan a little more, and it almost always pays off, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing I was thinking about with the public land stuff, obviously, most people having weekends off, that's when, most of the pressure. I know you had that in Iowa. It seemed like during the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of, the pressure definitely picked up.
I can't, don't quote me on this, but I can't remember if it was the weekend. I feel like it was the weekend when I actually killed and there was more pressure. And we were somewhat deterred a little bit from all that pressure, and that's what led us to actually killing a buck, was because I was like, man, this guy's starting to show up left and right everywhere. Every parking lot we go to, there's someone else. There's out-of-state guys like us showing up that have drawn the tag, and I was like, this is tough. Everywhere we want to go, we run into someone else. So the one variable that we noticed pretty much every time was like, man, we're noticing deer sign not far from the parking lot, and that's what we did. We're like, maybe we're overthinking this, and like thinking every we got to go so far deep in to kill a deer or a big buck or whatever, and that wasn't necessarily the case, and it proved not to be the case. We just set up, I think, like 250 yards away from the parking lot. We could see my truck parked there, watched a guy pull in after we'd been set up in the tree for an hour, and he went downwind of us. I don't think he saw us in the tree or anything, but he just went his way where he was planning on going, knowing that we were obviously in there somewhere, and it ended up being downwind of us, thankfully, and killed a buck like an hour and a half after that. So yeah, it's just trying to find that limiting factor, and when you've got a lot of pressure there, it can be hard, but don't overthink it.
Yeah, I feel like the deer in those, especially those highly pressured public areas, the deer are patterning the hunters, more than they're patterning the deer.
That's what seemed to be the case for sure then.
And so it seems like, over the years, the deer that we've killed on public, and buddies I know that have killed them on public, it seems like a lot of them have been killed in very unique spots, like spots that you're not going to pull up a map and look on Onyx and be like, oh, look at this beautiful rut funnel. Like everyone else is thinking that. Mm-hmm. And so that spot's going to get hammered, and the deer have probably figured that out. So definitely got to think outside the box in those scenarios.
For sure. So like really what it comes down to, if you're working that full-time job outside of hunting, like, not what we do, but just the average guy that doesn't do what we do, it just comes down to preparation, spending your time wisely, picking the right days to hunt, watching the weather conditions, and then the variables on where you're hunting. Like if it's a good early season spot, then maybe that's when you need to be focusing your vacation time, and just planning it all out.
Hunt smarter, not harder.
That's right.
All right, so you're prepped and ready for season, and you've done everything you need to do, but we all know guys that just fall apart in the heat of the moment. And we've been there. We've been hunting long enough. It happens, right? But that's something that I talk about a lot, is the mental side of archery in general, not even just bow hunting, but archery.
Yeah.
And when you throw a live deer into the mix, it gets even worse. But I feel like the best bow hunters I know are able to really gather their emotions in the heat of the moment, which obviously that's why we do what we do, because it's so exhilarating, so exciting. But if you let those emotions take control, a lot of bad things can happen.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know. I've been doing a lot of Bible studies lately, and I feel like, I can't remember the exact chapter and verse or whatever, but it's in Romans, I believe, and it's like, take your thoughts captive. Like, we're all in control of that. And as hard as it may be sometimes, like, now in the summertime and before season is the best time to prepare for that. So like it all starts right out there in your backyard, just shooting the bow, man, and just visualizing, thinking about what those scenarios are going to be like. Just trying to put yourself in that position mentally when you're out there in the fall and that buck's coming in. I don't know about you, but I usually like when it happens a lot quicker than longer. Like
sure.
When you can see him 300-400 yards away, just slow rolling his way in.
I've had those hunts, like you're like, oh, here it comes, and you get all excited, and then he like takes forever, and you're like, man, he's gonna get here, and then like, oh yeah, here he comes. Oh, we're running out of light. So that's the roller coaster of bow hunting. But confidence is everything in archery and bow hunting, and so the only way to build that confidence is practice by shooting in the yard, like you're saying. Or a lot of the farms that we hunt and manage are extremely high deer populations and need really heavy doe harvests. And like, go out there and shoot a doe. Like that, I tell people that all the time.
Yeah.
Go shoot a doe, or 3 or 4 if you need to. I mean, that builds so much confidence, because it's not as much of a high pressure situation for most people, to where they don't maybe get into their thoughts and overthink things as much. And so, practice makes perfect. Go to Texas.
Yeah, you can go to Texas too. That's a target-rich environment. But yeah, like what you said about shooting a doe, there's been plenty of times where we've missed or whatever, and you get down, you've been up high, and then now you're at a low, and it's like, get back out there, shoot a doe, fill the freezer, and get your confidence back up high, because it's easy to be low sometimes. And I don't know, getting a doe under the belt helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I know that I historically, obviously, when I first started bow hunting, learned how to manage those emotions early on, but then I felt really confident in my shooting and my ability. And I got humbled big time when you and I went to Nebraska to hunt mule deer for the first time. Just because it was different than anything we'd ever done before. Like in a tree stand, you got a deer most likely 20 to 30 yards, most shots, that we're setting up for. And they're walking down a trail, they're coming from the left, they're going to be here, I'm going to stop them right here. They're going to stop, give me a nice still shot, pick a spot, touch the trigger off, and you're good. When we come to mule deer hunting, God, that was a different world. Spot and stock mule deer hunting with a bow is very, very, very difficult. And while you might have 5-10 seconds as a deer, you stop a deer for a whitetail, like with a mule deer, you got usually 1 or 2 to pull the trigger, and you got to make it happen fast. And you're popping up over stuff, so you're not like on the target. So that was a very humbling experience for me, because I think I missed 3 or 4 before I found one that was asleep in his bed, and I was able to sneak in really close and get the job done.
All that so well, because I was there filming all of it, and so Mike had all these mishaps go on, and he was just like at the bottom of the barrel before he killed that buck. And I remember thinking like, well, I'm glad that's not me. And so you ended up killing a buck, and then the next year it was my turn, and I was like, Mike hasn't set the bar very high because of all the things that went wrong. And so I remember preparing for that though, and thinking like, all right, I was able to be there and witness everything that went wrong. And it helped me, because I was like, all right, there's no time to literally just sit there and settle in on the deer unless he's asleep. So in the backyard, I remember practicing like, and thinking like, all right, all the things you've learned up this point, settle in, take your time, squeeze it off real slow, throw that out the window, and prepare for this mule deer hunt specifically. Like, all right, you got to lock into your anchor point as quickly as possible, and then almost pop up and just, once you get it on there, like your pin on that target and ready to go, like squeeze it off quick. Not initiate target panic, but like it's almost a rushed shot,
right,
with control, some control.
Yeah, but so, the only way to figure that out is practice. And I got some practice in the field, but practicing in the yard helps a lot, even if you're going to get your heart rate up and pop up over a hay bale or whatever, just kind of get that practice in, because it's different. I will say that for sure. And same goes if you're going to spot and stock whitetails. It's going to be the same scenario. So it makes tree hunting seem much more calm and easy.
Yeah, but to back to that point, like with settling in and thinking about or mentally visioning like that scenario, there's a lot of times I'll practice in the backyard and I'll draw my bow, and I'll sometimes be like, meh, and just try to visualize that deer stopping, settling in right on the deer and then taking the shot.
Pretend he's a 200 incher.
Yeah.
I know you used to have that target of that giant mule deer. That was nice. You could just really, all right, buck of a lifetime. Here we go.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I always like to really, rather than see a deer and stare at his rack and be like, oh my God, he's huge. Oh my God. And think about, oh, I got to get this deer. You don't want to go down that road. My thoughts are like, how am I going to get this deer killed? Where's my best opportunity? I'm analyzing every situation. I feel like I'm in the Matrix, and just like, is the deer, okay, he's coming down this trail. Is he following a doe? Is there other deer downwind? Like really, you don't want to overthink it, but you want to really understand the scenario. And because a lot of times I feel like, you have a deer approaching and you think he's going to do this, and then something changes, something different happens. And so you might be like, all right, like I know if something happens, like this is my window, he's in bow range, I got to make it happen quick. Because it rarely does play out like you do in your head. So I think just analyzing the body language of the deer, because, you know, if they're calm coming in, you know, without caution, you know, usually they continue doing what they're doing in a pretty steady manner. But if something tips them off, if a deer gets downwind or they get nervous, like they're pretty sporadic on their behavior. So I think analyzing the body language of a deer and just kind of walking through the scenario in your head, not focusing on the rack, is crucial. So
yeah, and another thing to just go off of that is there's been scenarios where I'm watching, like I'm at full draw and the deer does something I'm not expecting, and maybe he quarters two or he quarters away really hard, and you know, he looks like he's leaving. And I don't know, with experience, I feel like I've really learned to not take the shot. If you're not comfortable, do not take the shot. It's not worth it. You know, I've learned that the hard way, and I couldn't say it enough that, like, if you're just not comfortable and he's maybe further out, don't take the shot. You never know what's going to happen. He may end up coming back. Maybe shoot him another day. Like, you never know.
Yeah.
Just don't.
And don't let your excitement take over, because I know you and I have been there before, you know, where you just get excited and maybe you come to full draw a little sooner than you probably should have. And then, like, the deer stops, but he's quartered two. It's like, you know, you don't want to take that shot. You want to be patient and wait for the shot. So knowing when to draw your bow, too, is something you learn with experience. And you know, you want to draw your bow and not have to hold back a very long time.
Yeah.
But there's been situations where, you know, we've had to hold back really long times, and let down even, and then draw back again. So it really is just a learning game, and you learn more as you go. So,
and that all starts with in the backyard. I mean, with
right.
repetition, you know, you're building strength. You can draw your bow back longer. You can get in the right mental state and be ready for that shot when the opportunity presents itself.
Build the confidence.
Yep.
Midwest Land Group has changed the way land is sold and is the only brokerage to offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you're looking to buy or sell property, don't before you talk to us.
So yeah, we've talked about preparation and just the things that you can do to get ready for season as well. But like, let's really dive into like some major tips that guys could take away from us for just getting ready for deer season. It's, what are we, July 8th, July 9th right now. And I feel like just past the 4th of July, that's when everybody really starts to hone in and focus on deer season. So we're ramping up for that. Like, as we get closer and closer, it just, you know, builds and builds, and we're going to be going nuts here in August, just getting everything dialed in and ready to go. So what would be some of your best tips for someone getting ready for deer season over the summer, or, you know, into the fall?
I think, man, like just these next, you know, coming month or 6 weeks, like, you really can't do enough, you know, to be prepared. It's a time where, you know, you're not going to be utilizing your free time hunting. So maximize it the best you can in getting things ready for season. I know that starts with, you know, like we talked about already, shooting, practicing, staying dialed in with your bow, obviously, but really starting now, like you were saying, the bucks are really starting to take shape. I pulled a couple cameras today, and some bucks are still, like, you know, a little behind, but some of them are dang near full grown already. So that's, I think, why people are starting to get really excited about it. And I know we were talking with Ty the other day about getting out and doing some velvet scouting and filming this week. And so that's always like my favorite thing to do. Obviously, you know, you're in the field, but you're, you know, at a vantage point far enough away where you're not disturbing things, but you're just observing the deer and figuring out the deer movement. So like summer scouting, I mean, it's a lot of fun too, because like you might have, I remember a few years back, we filmed a couple just giants that were just, you know, 170, 180, like just hanging out together. And pretty rare when you see a couple of bucks of that caliber hanging out in the same bean field. So summer scouting, I think you can learn so much, especially if you're going to be hunting early season. We've shot a lot of our bucks early season, and, you know, a lot of that's due to summer scouting and having eyes on them, knowing, you know, what number one, what is their destination food source that time of year, but two, where are they coming from and how are they approaching it, you know, depending on the wind, and you can kind of dial in to try to figure out where they're bedded.
Yeah, I agree. Summer scouting is huge. Putting trail cameras out. I mean, if most of us nowadays use trail cameras, whether it be just a regular trail camera or cell cam if it's legal, they play a huge part. They save you a lot of time, and you get to see a lot of things that you normally wouldn't get to see, even out there scouting. So, I mean, having those types of eyes in the woods are obviously extremely crucial. I mean, we keep a lot of trail cameras out throughout the year, but now and into August, that's when we pretty much put the entire bulk of them out and see what the bucks are doing, how they're progressing, what's living out there, and just preparing for season, kind of seeing what's where. And that all changes going into September for the most part, but at least you have a good idea of what's around there right now, and potentially have a shot at one early season.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously it depends on the states, and when you open up, we open in Missouri, we open up here on September 15th. Some states open September 1st.
Yeah.
Others not till October. So when we're doing our summer scouting, we're seeing a lot of those deer kind of stick to that deal at least the first week to 10 days of season usually. Some bucks are different. They shed their velvet and completely relocate, but if you have an early archery opener, that's where the summer scouting really can pay off. And like you were saying, cell cameras have been a huge change in just being able to put cameras in places and not going in and disturbing them.
Right.
I know we had for years had certain cameras that, like, this camera is by the stand, and we only check it when we hunt the stand. We're not going to go in, otherwise it was too intrusive to get into. So perfect spot for a cell camera. And on the flip side, we have spots where we put trail cameras where you can drive an electric buggy or even a truck on the farm road, and it's just right off the farm road where you're not disturbing deer. So every camera setup is a little bit different on how often I think you should check it and want to check it. But the advent of cell cameras has been a huge benefit, and especially in situations on properties that are out of state or a couple hours away.
Yeah.
They've definitely been a huge help.
And then we know guys that pretty much only hunt public, and those guys during this, I mean, we're talking like super serious public land hunters. They're out there in the summertime. They're e-scouting, but they're also spending time in the field, like glassing throughout the summer evenings, just whether it be over beans or maybe open CRP, whatever, just trying to find a buck that they want to spend their time targeting. And it's pretty cool to see. That's one heck of a way to spend your summer too, is out there trying to find the buck that you don't know even exists.
Yeah. I mean, your eyes are the trail cameras at that point. And, we've done several public land hunts where you can't run cameras, and it's like, it kind of changes your approach on things. When you already have some intel on what the deer are doing, you kind of have a pretty general idea of where you want to dive in and start hunting, then you can just jump in. But when you don't have that intel, it's like, I always like to take the outside in approach and start on the outside, whether that be from the road glassing or hiking into certain vantage points and glassing where you're not dropping into something really good and disturbing it, and learning about the deer. And as you learn more and more, you kind of dial your plan in and get more aggressive as you go, as the conditions allow for it and the weather allows for it.
Yeah, that kind of made me think of strategizing your hunt and hunting public land, or even private, but public as well. Like, especially if you don't have the availability of using a trail camera. I feel like if I have limited amount of time and I'm hunting public, I'm going to be looking for that limited resource. And I feel like oftentimes this one's way overlooked is water. And whether it be early season when it's hot or even during the rut, like, people just kind of neglect water. And deer, just like us, they need water daily. So they're going to be hitting water. And if it's during the rut, bucks are spending countless hours on their feet moving around, using tons of energy, dehydrated. They have to go to water. So I feel like that's just one that often gets overlooked, and people should look further into, especially if they're hunting public and looking for that limited resource. Because people always think food, even us. We're always like, oh yeah, deer got to go to food. They're going to go into food. Well, they got to have water. So
yeah, it's a lot more limited at times for sure.
Yep.
And it's especially in years like we've had lately with the late kind of summer droughts, to where a lot of the creeks dry up, and there's only certain ponds or certain reservoirs that are holding water, or out in Kansas where we've got stock tanks out there. It's a crucial resource, and it's just sometimes it is the limited resource. Sometimes food is the limited resource. So
right.
It always depends, but whatever is the most limited is usually where the deer are going to be most concentrated.
Yeah, for sure. Another one is just kind of another tip I feel like is just fine tuning your gear, making sure everything's dialed, all your bolts are tightened down on your bow, nothing's coming loose, and carrying a second release. I can remember once or twice where I've left my release, but thankfully I was close to the house and able to go back and get it. But because that's usually the first thing you do when we get to the field is throw a release on even before we walk in sometimes, because you may run into a buck on the way there. But yeah, carrying an extra release in your bag is.
It's easy to leave behind. I feel like I've carried an extra release in my bag for years and not used it. Thankfully, I hadn't needed it. But
Yeah.
I think 2 years ago in Colorado, I was turkey hunting, and I think we hunted the morning, went back to the house and shot bows, and I misplaced my release. Went back out for a late morning hunt, got on some gobblers. They're fired up, and like we're all scrambling to set up. Here they come, And I was like, "Oh God, where's my release?" And luckily, it was in Ryan's bag, and I was like, "Ryan," I was like, "Toss me the extra release." Ended up shooting the bird, so it saved me in that case because we weren't anywhere close to the house at that point. So
Yeah.
But yeah, just organization. I'm huge type A, like, having everything in the pack organized, not getting to the field and needing something that you don't have. So, the more organized you can be with your gear, with your preparation, with your scouting, all those details matter when it comes to hunting and bow hunting in particular.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. We just went over our mental preparation for deer season, how to maximize your deer season with a 9 to 5, and then just Mike and I's key strategies for getting ready for deer season. So if you guys enjoyed this type of content, make sure you drop a comment. We're going to pick 5 random winners in the comments for your chance to win an Onyx Elite membership. So we'll give away 5 of those. So you drop a comment, you've already entered your chance to win. So make sure you drop a comment at the bottom. Also, let us know if you guys liked this and want us to do more of this. We have the capacity to put more of these out. It's kind of our first test run on a podcast. I think we enjoyed it, so hopefully you guys did too. Thank you all for watching. See you guys next time.